Hi there, my lovely audience. How's it going? This is the Abrasive Outlet, here to talk about the news, politics, and anything else that needs some truth. Today I'm going to talk about the first presidential candidate in my brand new segment, Who's That? 2020, Pete Buttigieg. Who is Pete? Pete is a 37-year-old gay two-time mayor of South Bend, Indiana, who's married to Chasten Buttigieg as of 2018. As for his qualifications, he was a high school valedictorian, went to Harvard, was then a Rhodes Scholar and attended Oxford University. He speaks Norwegian, Spanish, Italian, Maltese, Arabic, Dari Persian, and French. Also, a fun fact that I love to mention whenever I talk about Pete Buttigieg is the fact that he was the winner of the JFK Profiles in Courage essay contest, which is, I guess, an impressive qualification on its own. But what stood out to me was the fact that he won it by writing about Bernie Sanders. This is back when he was 18 or so, and Bernie was a senator for Vermont. That must make the election pretty awkward. He's also a fairly religious man, and as I've stated before, the two-time mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He came out during his second election campaign and still won by a landslide in Indiana. He's also served in the Navy Reserves and actually left his office as mayor for a while to go to Afghanistan. So now, what are his stances? He supports universal health care, reducing income inequality, and is pro-environmental policies. Also, he wants to end gerrymandering, overturn Citizens United versus FEC, and abolish the Electoral College. Now let's get to the juicy stuff, the stuff that everybody cares about. What are the skeletons in Mayor Pete's closet? And honestly, I couldn't find very much. He's fairly vanilla in this aspect. But he did have a comment in 2015 that resembled the All Lives Matter movement. He said, and I quote, "We need to take both of those things seriously for the simple and profound reason that all lives matter." It's still unclear if he was actually referencing the All Lives Matter movement or it was just a turn of phrase, but he has addressed this recently on an interview in CNBC stating, "Since I learned about how that phrase has been used to push back on that activism, I've stopped using it in that context." He's also addressed the fact that in Indiana, in South Bend, there is over a 50% non-white population, and getting the black vote is what he needs to focus on next. He even kind of does this by sitting down with Reverend Al Sharpton, and it kind of feels like a move for the media and not really on a way to talk to the people who really have issues with race in this country. But he has taken other steps to address that as well, so I can't denounce that. Let's move on to what are his chances in this election. There's almost 24 candidates, and there are probably more as I'm speaking right now. So what are his chances? What is he polling at? Varying polls put him on par with Bernie, with a third place designation either right behind him or tied with Bernie, which is impressive for someone who hasn't had what people consider traditional experience when running for president. That's most likely senators, representatives. But he's a mayor, which isn't normal, and nor does he have the connections that other people have. Or the publicity, for that matter. You see these hi-fi congressmen and women on the news every other day for putting out legislation that affect millions of lives. But you don't get that kind of coverage when you're mayor. So this is impressive in its own merit. Now I'm going to put my opinion out there. The reason I started out with Pete Buttigieg in my brand new segment is because he's honestly my favorite candidate. I'm going to put that out there right now. And I have a couple reasons for feeling that way. First of all, Mike Pence used to represent South Bend, Indiana, and following that up with a Democratic gay mayor, that's something that is pretty much unheard of before Pete Buttigieg. So that's, again, impressive in its own merit. Also, I feel like he embodies the newest generation. He embodies the millennials. He is a millennial. The last couple presidents have all been from the same generation. And so have a majority of the people who are voting. But now, millennials are making up a large percentage of the voting population. They feel like they need candidates that they can relate to, that understand their problems, and have the same goals in mind as them. There are more millennials than anybody else at this point, and they want their problems to be heard and addressed. As much as Bernie's policies resonate with the same kind of people who would vote for Pete Buttigieg, they want somebody that they look at and they realize this person has went through the same things that I have. Bernie just kind of represents an older generation to the millennials, even though they resonate with his ideals as well. Regardless, I think everybody just kind of is in awe of his morality. Most other presidential candidates would probably have a list a mile long for the scandals portion of this segment, but he doesn't. He could have hidden his sexuality until after the mayoral election, but he didn't. He was honest with his people. It would have been so easy to hide that, win, and then reveal it afterwards, but he didn't. And that's something that most other candidates wouldn't do. Also, just from a more statistical point of view, he has the most